Born in Indiana, big advocate of Mega Man, and you'd think I'd be ready for when my dad comes home from a time with his family in Kentucky, and bam, the Indiana mug hits me. Props to you, Dad. You keep doing it, hit after hit, just like your high school prowess in basketball. Your mix-up game is pretty good. You think I'd be ready for the Christmas Mega Man gifts and buying me cool Indiana stuff, but I appreciate it. It's awesome, and I'm gonna try to be more ready for this Christmas. So I remember leaving community college one day, and this was leading into an exam, and I'll never forget my child ego state kicking in, and it's going like, I don't want to study. And I told myself internally, then don't. And I could feel my child ego state going like, but then wait, wouldn't we fail? And that kind of alignment, I remember telling my mom, who, as a therapist, she's helped me so much with understanding like mental refinement and discipline. And being able, she told me that's a good way to tame the child ego state in a healthy way. And so the child ego state is something that we all have. It's that thing that when you're needing to work, when you're needing to study, you're needing to get things done, it's going, oh, come on. Go watch Tarzan on Disney Plus. You deserve it, but you really need to get things done. It's the difference between, procrastinating and taking a break, right? Taking a break, when you discipline yourself in terms of the child ego state being tame, is where you set like a timer. You set, okay, we're gonna do just this, and then we're getting back to it. And another thing my mom did is she bought me an egg timer going into college, and that egg timer helped a lot because I would study for math, history, and then once the timer hit after around 30 minutes, I would spend about 5 minutes or 10 depending on the day, often practicing Super Smash Bros. Melee. Yoshi's a pretty technical character, and it was a fun way to kind of motivate myself to, it's like being productive on both ends, being productive for a competitive hobby, but being productive towards school. And, a big thing that college does is it pushes for critical thinking skills. It pushes for discipline skills. That's oftentimes where a lot of these jobs, why they require bachelor's degrees, because you're proving that you were able to hone some form of critical thinking skills while also maintaining good structure. And I think that type of structure is really important. The song you're listening to right now is Hot Stereo by Desk, which came out 10 years ago. I Love Mondays started as a celebration for things that came out 10 years ago, which was Shovel Knight, Mario Kart 8, and Resonance by Home. And you want to talk about motivations. Your child ego state is something that stems as early as, oh, go have one more chocolate chip cookie, but you're currently fasting, and or let's say you're on some form of disciplinary diet to help yourself. Maybe your doctor says you need to watch a sugar intake. And so being able to tame that child ego state, but then being able to potentially say, hey, we could get that later, or once I hit a certain health goal, yeah, let's go get a cookie to celebrate. In this case, the child ego state during finals, my first full year of college was coming up, and those two games were a huge motivator. Summer 2014, with a lot of those finals coming up, and a lot of studying was kicking in, a lot of the child ego state wanting to go play games and watch YouTube videos a ton. And I'm not talking about those helpful shower noises for 10 hours type videos, or your background music you'd play. The child ego state is wanting you to watch a bunch of tournament footage from Street Fighter 4 that just happened. It's wanting you to just go down the recommended combo game. You click on one thing, watching a video on T-Hawk, and then you're like, hey, I love TF2. Yeah, let's watch this video about hat drop rates, right? And then the next thing you know, you're like, oh, look, the trailer for Mario Kart 8. Ooh, a new one, right? But rather than do all that, you tell your child ego state, hey, it literally is next week. This is done, and you're either going to be playing that game, Mario Kart 8, with your friends and feeling awful because you flunked your finals, or you're going to keep at it right now, do your best, and then enjoy Mario Kart 8. And that's another thing my mom helped me with, is she told me about, time's going to pass regardless. How did you spend it? So that kind of good life balance of, letting your child ego state know, hey, it's gonna show up eventually, in terms of release dates. What are you doing with your time? And this song, the Hot Stereo by Desk, that is a guy that he has been keeping at it in Street Fighter combos for years, and he's also a great composer. And so that competitively motivated me in a positive manner. I was like, wow, he killed it. He's a great composer too. Just from this song alone, I was like, okay, I can tell this guy's pretty competent. And so, in general, being a good composer like that, he motivated me. And that, when it comes to composing music, that is a big buckle down type job. I always joke, but it's not a joke, that composing music is basically a big form of art creation where you don't ironically listen to music, really. You can, but it often can be, clashing with what you're trying to do. I'm not against challenging myself for that, but yeah, compared to drawing, animation, writing, oftentimes you can have a playlist going. But yeah, for writing music, I think it's its own form of, discipline, where, you buckle yourself down and talk about motivation to keep at it. So taming that child ego state really does come down to, this. I love this quote by Goku in Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3. He does his ultimate super move, that costs the most meter, right? And for Dragon Fist, he says, "If I don't, who will?" And then he does Dragon Fist as a technique, which is a really cool looking technique, and that stuck with me throughout college. That was one for one aligning with taming the child ego state, was if I don't, who will? The paper's due tomorrow. And I'm like, oh, don't you want to go play some Street Fighter? Don't you want to go play some Melee? No, let me do this paper or else we'll fail, And sometimes the child ego state is so strong that it wins over that kind of firm boundary you make with it. And so what you have to do is you're like, okay, let's not write this paper. And then, that's when my whole, logical state of, well, then I'd probably fail the class or I'd get a low grade. It's that process where you can get your child ego state to line up with it. It's like talking back. It's like, wait, hold on. Yeah. And yeah, my mom helped me out recognizing that that's important. It's healthy to tame something like that. I don't want to say tame. It's self-control, firm boundaries, and then your child ego state often aligns with it. You make a routine discipline. You keep at it, and it becomes a custom. It becomes normalized. But also don't be against adding and refining that discipline. Life's going to throw you curveballs. Are you ready to catch them? And so being able to do the if I don't, who will mindset and keeping at it, and then you get to enjoy Mario Kart 8 and Shovel Knight with your friends right after, it's pretty great. And you know what? Every now and then, yeah, go have that chocolate chip cookie. It's you don't have to be totally against it. It's just all about testing what your priorities are. And I do think there's a part of life where you need to make sure that you're enjoying yourself, but you can enjoy yourself in your work too. There's a lot of fun stuff. Like I said, being able to just listen to music while studying, that's a nice luxury to have. Being able to just drink this Colombian coffee, that's a nice luxury to have. And I can do this while working. I think that's awesome. I think what else is awesome is just the fact that I learn about how much my friends and family also keep at it in life each day. I think oftentimes we can be almost desensitized to the term pat yourself on the back. But what that's trying to say is, rather than obviously, I'm not saying oh, I do all this work, I deserve praise. No. I'm talking about as an observer, I see people that they are refining discipline skills already. They are taming a child ego state. They're keeping at it with work that's going to help them. And so that's when I tell them, hey, keep at it. That's great. And being able to refine that form of disciplinary skill is something that not just will help you with, your work, but we talk about health, just a good state of well-being. That's something that's pretty promising throughout your whole life as you keep going. And being able to be consistent at it, being able to consistently tame the child ego state and hone those critical thinking skills and applying yourself each day, it's pretty great to do. Keep at it in life, and hopefully you keep it in touch with your friends and family, and when you actually ask them how's it going, it can go a long way when you listen, and you listen to what they do each day, right? There's a reason people say, props to just getting out of bed each day. Let's get out of bed and keep that momentum going. I love Mondays.